في الهوى المذري معذرة مني إليك ولو أنصفت لم تلمي عادتك حالي لا سري بمستغير عن الوشاة ولا دائب منحسب ما حتى للنصح لكن لست أسمعه إن المحب عن العذل بصمم إن
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you everyone for those who are connected on Zoom, those who are connected on Facebook, and those who will watch this later on. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you with many of the barakat that is gained from the recitation and from learning of the life of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the form of the Burdah Shareef. Last session, today is the 4th of Rabi al-Awwal, and we are in session number 4 of the Burdah Shareef sessions. We stopped at Da'a ilallahi fal mustamsikuna bihi mustamsikuna bihablin ghayri munfasimi. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam called people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so those who hold fast to him are holding fast to a rope that shall never break. After that, it has been established by Imam Busiri rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Sharafuddin al-Busiri rahmatullah alayhi, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that if we hold on to that rope, that we will never go astray, and his shafa'at will be with us inshaAllah ta'ala on Yawm al-Qiyamah. فاق النبيين في خلق وفي خلق ولم يدانوه في علم ولا كرم. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam excelled the other prophets in form and in qualities, in physical form and in his qualities. So khalq is your physical form and khuluq is your character. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam excelled all of the prophets in both regards. وَلَمْ يُدَانُوهُ فِي عِلْمِ وَلَا كَرَمِ. Their knowledge and nobility did not come near to his. After having mentioned the qualities of the emissary of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, such as being the master, a commander, and a forbidder, and the beloved, and a caller to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the author Imam Sharafuddin al-Busiri rahmatullahi alayhi laments the fact that he cannot encompass the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's qualities, even if he attempts to enumerate them and go to great lengths in lauding and praising him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For that reason, the author gives an exhaustive description indicating the unattainable nature of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's numerous qualities, and that no human has any hope of encompassing them. No one among the previous prophets attained this quality, much less those who are not prophets.
How they see you? Do we need to put it on camera?
Put what on camera?
This one?
Yeah, just turn the camera on.
What is that?
Okay, stop it.
You said put it on one of the cameras right there.
just have to go with my voice today.
Okay.
Apologize for that. We just had some technical difficulty over here. So I wanted to pick up from where no one amongst the prophets amongst all of the prophets alayhim assalam ajmain attained these qualities, much less those who are not prophets. I mean, for those who claim that the Prophet ﷺ was just a human being like us, na'udhu billah min dhalik, even the prophets did not come close to the Prophet ﷺ in both his khalq and his khuluq. And why? Because the Prophet, they had not obtained or drawn, they have not obtained or drawn them from any source other than the Prophet ﷺ. For he is the source of these qualities and the treasure trove of their perfection. The Prophet ﷺ has therefore excelled and surpassed them in his material form, and as well in his physical creation. Regarding the goodness and the beauty, now this is something that several of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ have related similar accounts about the Rasulullah ﷺ, both his physical and his noble character. Especially Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhu, Hazrat Abu Huraira radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Hazrat al-Bara ibn Azib, and others all describe him as having a fair and red complexion, with a slightly rounded face, with a broad forehead, and a thick beard that reached his chest. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They described him as having a broad chest and shoulders, and as being a medium stature, neither excessively tall nor short. Yet when walking with anyone, he would always seem taller than them. When he laughed, it was always almost smiles, revealing his teeth as white as hailstones. And when he spoke, a light would be seen emanating from between his teeth. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Hazrat, as far as the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's bodily cleanliness is concerned, and his scent and his fragrant odor, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the exalted and sublime, granted him many unique qualities in that regard that are not found in others. Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu relates that I have never smelled ambergris or musk or anything sweeter than the emissary of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Hazrat Jabir radiallahu ta'ala anhu mentioned how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam once touched his cheek. He said, I mentioned how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, I experienced a coolness and a fragrance from his hand. His hand smelled as if he had dipped it in a perfume bottle, whether it was wearing scent or not. When he shook someone's hand, a pleasant fragrance would stay with that person for the rest of the day. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He would pet the heads of children, and any child who received a pet from him would stand out from the other children due to his blessed fragrance. In regards to his inner character traits, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam preferred, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preferred him with lofty character traits, high qualities, and inward Sharia-based etiquettes such as knowledge, religion, forbearance, patience, gratitude, justice, renunciation, humility, pardon, temperance, generosity, bravery, shyness, respectability, amiability, silent reflection, dignity, mercy, and filial piety, among others. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam embodied the exalted and sublime. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam, astaghfirullah, he embodied and personified all of these traits. It should be enough for you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised his character by saying, إِنَّكَ عَلَى خُلُقِ الْعَظِيمِ, and truly you are amongst the most immense character. To detail all of the elements of his character would prove extremely lengthy, according to the author. He says then, a lot of this has been related in the book called the Shifa. So these prove that the character of the Prophet ﷺ was above all of the prophets and above all of humanity. In short, it's not possible to examine fully the Prophet ﷺ's qualities, especially his generosity and munificence. We shall soon examine the author's couplet. We shall soon examine more about this in the rest of the Burdah Shareef. Now, I'm going to move on to the next section. And if you were to, just for this verse, the books are full of, if you were to pick up the Shamail of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you were to pick up the Shifa of Qadi Iyad rahmatullah alayh, you will find that there is the physical form and the character traits of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been detailed in very, very good detail. وَكُلٌّ مِّن رَسُولِ اللَّهِ مُلْتَمِسٌ غَرْفًا مِّنَ الْبَحْرِ أَوْ رَشْفًا مِّنَ الدِّيَمِ. They all seek something from Allah's messenger, handfuls from the sea or small sips of drizzle. وَكُلٌّ مِّن رَسُولِ اللَّهِ مُلْتَمِسٌ, and they were multamis. They sought. They were all seeking from who? From Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. غَرْفًا مِّنَ الْبَحْرِ, a handful from the ocean. The Bahr is ocean, and Gharfam is just, in Urdu they call it the chillu, just a little bit of water in your hand that your hand can contain. Or Rashfa min ad-diyami, which is drizzles, just small sips that you get from a drizzle when it falls upon your face. Here what the author is saying is that since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has conferred upon our Master sallallahu alaihi wasallam perfect knowledge and blessed him with the secrets of ma'rifat, gnosis, the sciences of the previous prophets are minuscule in comparison. Hence they seek something of his knowledge and wish that they could obtain a portion from it that is comparable to a handful taken from the sea or a single sip or drizzle. Now, many of the theologians and others, according to the author, state that, how is it that the other prophets are seeking what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in other places in the Quran that he was, there was no distinction between prophets, right? To answer that, they say, how is it possible for the prophets to seek something from him when they came from before him, right? I mean, this is the thing that they're saying, that how is it that the Prophet ﷺ can be compared to him where the Prophet ﷺ came afterwards? The response is that each prophet recognized him and they knew him, and they took a covenant to believe in him and to support him. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and remember when Allah took the covenant from the prophets. And then further in the same ayat says to believe in him and to support him. Right? To believe in him and to support him. How does a prophet who has come before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of course we can understand believing in him, but how is it that they would support him? Right? So all of the prophets had clear knowledge. They had clear knowledge concerning him, and they acknowledge his rank long and they long to behold him. Many of them, in fact, wish to belong to the community of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Ummah. And as we mentioned earlier, as the author mentioned earlier, we talked about this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the cosmos only for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's sake, the universe. And the other prophets and the callers unto Allah are his representatives. So it is not far-fetched to say that their knowledge is but an outpouring of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's knowledge, and Allah grants his mercy to whom he wills, and Allah is the possessor of immense bounty. Thereafter, the next verse, وَوَاقِفُونَ لَدَيْهِ عِنْدَ حَدِّهِمُ مِنْ نُقْطَةِ الْعِلْمِ أَوْ مِنْ شَكْلَةِ الْحِكَمِ. They all stand before him observing their limits, recognizing what their limits are, all of the prophets. Dots in his knowledge or vowel marks in his wisdom. Min nuqtatil ilmi, from this is nuqta is a dot or a period. Or min shaklatil hikami. Shakal or tashkil are vowels, fatha, dhamma, kasra, and so forth in the Arabic language. So dots to his knowledge or vowel marks to his wisdom. So you need a little more attention, pay attention to what is being said about this and what it means. What the author is saying is that the prophets stand before the emissary of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, seeking a portion from the sea of his knowledge and wisdoms. Each of them stands within limits of the knowledge and wisdom conferred upon them. Their knowledge, in comparison to the Prophet ﷺ's knowledge, is like a dot compared to a letter. And their wisdom, in comparison, is like a vowel mark compared to a letter. Okay, so stay with me. The letter is the primary means of indication, says the author. But what it stands for is made clear with a dot or vowel mark, right? The Prophet ﷺ's knowledge and wisdom are likened to letters used for writing with their dots and vowel marks. But they, all of the other prophets, are a conventional but they are conventional means of gaining knowledge, right? So dots and vowel marks are conventional means of gaining knowledge, dots and letters. And the portion of that knowledge and wisdom taken by the other prophets is made to resemble the dots and vowel marks on those letters. So if you were to take all of knowledge and all of letters, the dots and the vowel marks are what all of the prophets combined had in terms of their knowledge and in terms of their wisdom when compared to the Prophet ﷺ, who was the words and the letters. Since knowledge is that which draws distinction between things and it makes them clear, it is likened to the dots on letters, since they are also distinctions. And since vowel marks increase the clarity of letters, they are likened to wisdom. So the author Imam Busiri rahmatullahi alayhi uses dots with knowledge. He compares dots with knowledge and he compares vowels with wisdom, right? And then he says that because dots make a distinction between letters, if you have a ba and a ta and a tha, what distinguishes the letters between those? It is the dots, right? And then wisdom, on the other hand, is beyond what is called knowledge. Wisdom is knowledge with an added mastery. And on that account, it is said that every sage is a scholar, but not vice versa. And every wali of Allah is a scholar, but not every scholar is a wali of Allah. The reason for this, it is said, is that a dot has one shape, just as knowledge is a single reality, which is to have knowledge of that which is known as it truly is. On the other hand, vowel marks have four shapes: dhamma, fatha, kasra, and sukun. And likewise, wisdom can be verbal, qawliya, fi'liya, and aqliya. So this is going a little deep into the nature of wisdom and the nature of knowledge. But we just need to understand that what is being said over here is that the other prophets of Allah, when it comes to the knowledge of the Prophet ﷺ, they were like the dots in the letters, and the Prophet ﷺ was all of the letters and all of the words. And then if you were to take wisdom, the wisdom of the Prophet ﷺ was compared to his wisdom, and was the other prophets compared to the wisdom of the Prophet ﷺ was just the vowels, and the Prophet ﷺ was all of the words and the letters. So it's a little deep. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to understand this further. فَهُوَ الَّذِي تَمَّ مَعْنَاهُ وَسُورَتُهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَفَاهُ حَبِيبًا بَارِعٌ نَسَمِي. It is He whose meaning and form attain perfection. Then the Maker of souls chose Him for His beloved. Having established that the Prophet ﷺ possesses attributes of perfection, as has been described early on, both in his khalq and in his khuluq, the author now draws the conclusion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preferred the Prophet ﷺ's inner and outer traits of excellence over all others. Right? Allah has gathered for him a beautiful appearance, a noble and virtuous character, and that is the meaning of the author's statement, whose meaning and form attain perfection. فَهُوَ الَّذِي تَمَّ مَعْنَاهُ سُورَتُهُ. It is He whose meaning and form attained perfection. Okay. ثُمَّ اسْتَفَاهُ حَبِيبًا بَارِعٌ نَسَمِي. Then the Maker of souls chose him for His beloved. He then says that Allah increased the Prophet ﷺ in honor and nobility by drawing him close. He made him His Habib. Right? So not only was it that the Prophet ﷺ attained the best of character, and not only that he was given the best of forms from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then chose him as His Habib, as His beloved. So Allah has elevated his station, ennobled his rank, drawn him near, and bestowed upon him the greatest portion of His good pleasure. The Prophet ﷺ stated, when I was young, Allah Most High made the Prophet ﷺ not only that which I've just mentioned in terms of his khalq and khuluq, and that he was His Habib, but he was also given a naturally disposed, a nature disposed naturally to goodness during his youth, and he was safeguarded from the impurities of the pre-Islamic Jahiliyyah times of ignorance. The Prophet ﷺ, by his own words, stated, when I was young, the idols were made detestable to me. It was in his nature that he detested that. It wasn't something that he learned or did not know before, and suddenly he knew about it. But in his nature, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made idol worship detestable to him. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I never thought to do any acts done in the time of Jahiliyyah, except for 2 times. But then Allah safeguarded me and I did not do them. Okay, these were things like music and other things that people of Jahiliyyah did at that time. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even put Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam into a very deep sleep, and then he didn't go to that place where he was invited. He was raised in the earliest years in the best of conditions, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the most temperate and truthful of people, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathered with him the traits of goodness, so much that he was given the title of Al-Amin, the trustworthy, during his youth, and he was readied for the immense honor that Allah desired of him. It is related by Ibn Masud radiallahu ta'ala anhu that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, indeed Allah the exalted and majestic looked upon the hearts of the servants and chose from them the heart of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and selected him for himself, sent him with his message, and took him as a beloved. He is written in the Torah as Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the beloved of the merciful. specifically Habib al-Rahman. The author, Imam Sharafuddin al-Busiri rahmatullahi alayhi, placed the placement of the subject's pronoun in the beginning of the couplet, which is فَهُوَ الَّذِي. In the beginning of the couplet indicates restriction or hasr, and it communicates that no one has obtained the qualities of perfection found with the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, such as his beautiful form and august character. The reports that speak of the beautiful form and good character of the Prophets are famous and they are well known. But it is our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam who is at the forefront and who carries this banner. Not a single one among them attained his rank and reached the quintessential perfection of his status. Now, this is what I was talking about, was the objection that some people may raise. And they would say, but this is a narration but there's a hadith prohibiting us from giving preference to some prophets over others. I mean, people always say that, right? I mean, the prophets, there's no distinction between them. And how are we to reconcile that with the author's statement, where the author is actually saying that it is he whose meaning and form attained perfection, then the maker of souls chose him as his beloved, right? So how do you reconcile that? And then they say that even the Prophet ﷺ stated, do not show preference between the prophets. Do not show preference between the prophets. The reply to that, Imam Ibn Ajiba, the one who did the commentary in this, he says that the Prophet ﷺ said this before he knew that he was the master of the children of Adam alayhi salam and the master of humanity on the day of resurrection. Alternatively, it can be said that the Prophet ﷺ only prescribed the type of preference that leads to diminishing the rank of or showing aversion to the one less preferred. It is also possible that the Prophet ﷺ said the statement out of humility, out of inkisari, or that he forbade showing preference with regards to prophethood or messengership as such, since prophethood is the receiving of revelation in which all prophets are equal. Okay, so there was a distinction between prophethood and Nabi and Rasul. Okay, so it is he whose meaning and form attained perfection, then the maker of souls chose him for his beloved. And I made that clear over here. The author made it clear that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as his beloved, as mentioned in the previous text as well, and also as related by Ibn Masud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Okay. منزه عن شريك في محاسنه فجوهر الحسن فيه غير منقسم. منزه عن شريك في محاسنه. Munazzah means exalted or above what you think, above what we can imagine. Exalted above having a rival in his perfections. The Prophet ﷺ was way above having anyone as a rival in his perfections. في محاسنه فجوهر الحسن فيه غير منقسم. In him is the undivided essence of beauty. فجوهر الحسن. Okay, so we'll talk about what Jawhar al-Husni means. But what the author is saying here, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exalted him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, above having a co-sharer in any of his inward and outward traits of perfection. No one in creation has any hope of obtaining a portion thereof. This couplet is a continuation and explanation of the previous couplet that I had mentioned. In other words, it is he and he alone whose meaning and form attained perfection, and consequently Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has exalted him above having any co-sharer, anybody who can share in his beauty, anybody who can share in his wisdom, anybody who can share in his knowledge, anybody who could share in his generosity, anybody who could share in his physical form, in his khuluq. So by saying in him is the undivided essence of beauty, Imam al-Busiri rahmatullahi alayhi informs us that the essence of beauty is confined to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam alone. The word essence or jawhar al-husni, the word essence means that which is undivided and does not accept any division. Likewise, the essence of the Prophet ﷺ's beauty is exclusive and undivided. No one in creation has any hope of obtaining a portion of it. So I will conclude this section now with the final section of what Imam Ibn Ajiba relates. He says, if you were to behold the Prophet ﷺ, you would say he is a man, just as he said of himself, ﷺ, and as Allah said in the Quran, quote, I am but a man like you. But if you were to consider the unique traits and exemplary qualities with which Allah favored him, ﷺ, and the favors Allah granted him, such as his beautiful form and character, you would say that he is not human. The upshot of this is that the Prophet ﷺ is human, but he is not like any other human. He is like a ruby among ordinary stones. The wisdom behind Allah sending the Prophet ﷺ in a human form, through his soul, though his soul is dissimilar to the soul of the rest of humanity, lies in the fact that had he been other than human, such as an angel, no human would be able to interact with the angels or receive revealed laws from them. They would not be able to even relate to an angel, let alone see an angel. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him. He was the most perfect of souls. He was the most perfect of human beings. He was the most perfect in character, in form, in his soul, in his essence. Jawhar al-Husni, فَجَوْهَرَ الْحُسْنِ فِيهِ غَيْرُ مُنْقَسِمٍ. In him is the undivided essence of beauty. However, Allah Most High has strengthened the souls of the prophets, indeed, enabling them to behold the angels, and has ordered mankind to follow them in their statements, actions, and inward and outward states, the outward emulating the outward, and the inward emulating the inward. Emulating meaning walking in their path, following them, following their example. May Allah bless us to follow them and love them till death. Ameen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينَ. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.